Hello, valued viewers. Welcome to Raw Data. This is take two. I recorded the entire thing only to find that the microphone wasn't recording. So if I end up going too fast in this, it's because I've already done this once. Um, but nonetheless, uh, going into the game, first of all, let me say that I did not play it when it was in early access. It came out 6 days ago out of early access, and I just picked it up today and played through it a little bit, did a little bit of the story and some multiplayer games, and these are my thoughts on it. When I went into it, I had the expectations of it being a wave shooter. I knew that I was going to play one or two of the story missions and then I would ignore it and go straight into multiplayer. I knew that it had some pretty good graphics, especially compared to some of the other VR games that I've been playing. Um, and I kind of wanted to get it for that reason. Most of the games that I play have good gameplay, but not very good graphics. So I kind of wanted a game with good graphics and see what the gameplay aspects of it were like. I knew that since it just came out of early access that there'd be some bugs, but I figured coming out of early access, most of them would have been fixed. I knew that I would get immersed in some firefights in some of the waves and have a lot of fun doing that, and I expected some great multiplayer. So hopping right into the game, it puts you straight into the tutorial, and it my first thought is I am lost. It puts you in a room and it makes you look for something, and she says it's over by that window. First of all, the place was too dark to see a window. Second of all, her hint, once you couldn't find it, was it's by the rotating E, and I saw an E that wasn't rotating, and then I turned around and started walking, and then she was like, "Oh yeah, that E right there," and then it popped up. So I don't know if that's a distance thing or it really shouldn't be. Um, but whatever it was, I started out the story being lost. Um, and then after you do all that very intro stuff, it puts you into the main menu, like lobby room, and she says go over to one end of the room and do your pistol tutorial to like see how to use a pistol and each gun. It goes through it afterwards, and there's like a terminal. Um, there's actually a pedestal that has the AI, which I'll talk about later, that like talks you through the whole thing. And then right next to it, there's a terminal that's supposed to have a big screen on it that you click pistol, and it gives you the pistol tutorial. That screen never showed up for me. And then on the other end of the room, there was a identical setup for different tutorials, and I could go over there. That terminal worked just fine. I could click anything on that, and it would work. Um, and then even once that worked, I went back to the first tutorial um, area, and it still didn't work. I had to restart the entire game in order to get that terminal window to pop up and let me click on pistol. So I know it's probably just a bug, but it was kind of one of those things that right when you get into the game, you're like, what do I do? And it tells you to do something, and you go to do it, and you can't, and you're like, am I doing something wrong here? But other than that, the tutorial was pretty good, despite those lost feelings. It showcased the abilities that you'll see later in the game. It kind of gives you an it shows you what some later game stuff will be like. It shows you the bullet storm mode and the pistol. So and then it takes it right away from you. So you're like, oh man, I can't wait until I actually unlock that and can use it. Um, but it doesn't take it away as gracefully as you'd like to. Like, um, it shows you how to do it, lets you do the bullet storm thing once, and then it brings another robot out, and you think that you can still do it, so you do what you just learned to try and do the bullet storm again, and they took the ability away, so now you can't even use it. And that would have been fine if they'd have made it a little bit clearer that they were taking the ability away. If they would have been like, "Oh, I'm gonna let you use this, but you only get one since it's a since you don't have it yet, or since you haven't unlocked it, or you haven't bought it. Um, and then after that, they have you go through some melee combat. They give you the sword right away, and they're like, okay, here, kill a guy with it. So you play around with it a little bit, and then you get to kill a guy with it, and then immediately they take the sword away from you. So you're like, well, I wanted to do a little bit more with the sword, see what else it could do, and they make you use punches for the next part of the tutorial. I would think, most tutorial or most games in their tutorial, they let you play around with it until you're ready to move on, and then you like hit a button and then you move on. So I'd have liked that if that would have been the case, but they just take it away from you and are like, okay, move on. Um, and then um, they had you dodge punches, which was interesting. And like the first time I did it, I almost fell over backwards, and it was like a big stretch for me. And it felt kind of cool to dodge a punch. Um, but the punch dodging in the tutorial was in no way indicative of what it would be in the actual game. Um, First of all, you hopefully never get yourself into a situation where you have to dodge punches. But second of all, they punch a lot faster in the real game, and hopefully I'll throw up a video of that. But I guess I can't say that you never get into a situation where you'll have to use hand-to-hand combat, especially if you choose to be the ninja guy, which I'll talk about later. Um, but because there is a situation where people got too close to me, so I just put my gun away and punched everybody and killed a bunch of people real quick, and it worked out. So it's a good thing that they put it in the tutorial. Um, but I would have liked if after you dodge the first punch, they're like, okay, now this is what it'll actually be. This is the speed it'll actually be like in a real game. Um, so that was kind of all my thoughts on the tutorial, other than the fact that it left me feeling lost at some points. It gave you an understanding of all the controls and what you need to do, and then it tries to walk you into the story, um, and knowing that it's a wave-based shooter game, they throw endless hordes of enemies at you, and you just got to kill them all and whatever. Knowing that, it's kind of hard to put a story to that, but I think they tried way too hard to make a story around it. The story is that the robots are all from some evil corporation, and you're being sent in to gather data from them to infiltrate them or whatever, and you're being walked through this whole mission by an outside person in your ear. Um, but I think they try a little bit too hard. Like each wave, you like right when you get into the mission, you have to grab a very futuristic flash drive and put it into a terminal, and then she, the person talking to you, goes, "Oh no, the security got around us, so now you got to kill a bunch of robots before I can upload this data." So it was kind of corny, I guess. Um, but I guess what are you gonna do? It's kind of hard to make a story around it, anyways. But I also think they tried a little too hard to be kind of like Portal, where they integrated some good humor into the story, and had some like banter that was always funny. Um, I think they tried a little too hard to do that too, because there were a couple points where you could tell that they were trying to be funny, but it wasn't funny at all to me. And kind of during that banter, I found myself not even paying attention. Usually you'd think that you're like paying attention to the cutscenes that go on, but I always found myself like messing around with my hands or reloading my gun for no reason or anything like that. But other than those things, it is a pretty good progressive story. They walk you through. Um, it just gets better as it goes, harder as it goes along. It does seem like it will be a good story. I only did one or two missions, but it seems like I could be interested in continuing on the story. And it does make you want to upgrade your weapons, and it introduces you to the four different characters. You can pick each of the four characters per mission that you want to do, and when you finish a mission, you get rewards. Like after the first mission, I unlocked that bullet storm ability that they showed me 10 minutes ago. Um, so it was kind of cool to see the upgrade progression and to be able to use whichever character I wanted. It's not like like in Battlefield 1, they have you play each character through their story. It's more like you can pick which character you want per mission. So I thought that was kind of good. And on the characters, each one has their own kind of class. There's the pistol wielding guy who can also dual wield. I haven't gotten that far yet, but that's an option. And then there's the shotgun guy who's got a grenade launcher. There's the sword guy, who's I call the ninja. And then there's also the elder, who's the bow wielding guy. The elder is the one that I used for the first mission of the campaign, and I like the bow. And then when I got into multiplayer, I wanted to try out a different guy, so I tried the pistol wielding guy. Um, the shotgun guy, I think his name is Boss. I am not a fan of at all. Like during the tutorial, they had you using the shotgun, and I thought it was terrible. They kind of forced you to use two hands with the shotgun, and in games like Onward, where you have two hands, it just feels a lot better. I don't know how to describe it, but using two hands on a gun in raw data was just clunky. I didn't like it. Maybe it's because it was a pump shotgun, so, and moving two hands on a virtual gun just didn't really work out. But if you like the boss shotgun guy, more power to you. Um, but other than that, those are the four characters and kind of my thoughts on the story. After that, I went into multiplayer, and the I was on my way to hit quick start, and then I got an invite from somebody in my lobby because apparently there's just random people that sit in the lobby room and they don't look like they're doing anything, so I don't know what the deal is there. But he invited me, so I went over to him and was like, okay, I'll join you. And I'm pretty sure he's put his fair amount of time into the game because he had a lot of upgrades, and obviously I had only played one mission, so I didn't have a lot of upgrades at all. And so I was playing with somebody who had some experience and some levels, so that could have affected it. But the very first phase was absolutely impossible. Um, he went into one he went onto one side of the map, and I was like, okay, that means I'll go over to the other. And I got overwhelmed and died within the first like 10 seconds of the game. And then he came over and helped, and uh, we got it taken care of or whatever. But then the second phase, we were literally sitting there picking drones out of the sky. Like it was from 100 to 0 in one phase. Um, but once we killed the last drone, it immediately got right back to as difficult as it was in the first phase. I got overwhelmed again, and I think I died again. And then the third through the sixth phases kind of leveled out and were as you'd expect for a firefight type thing. I only died like once through the rest of those phases, so it wasn't terrible, and it kind of was the difficulty that I had expected before the first and second phase. Um, One thing that's nice is that it puts the core health up when it's getting attacked, so if you're not anywhere close to it, you know that it's getting attacked. But I did notice one bug where it got attacked out of nowhere. Like the health bar came up, so I went over to it and there was nobody in sight, and I started walking away, and then the health bar came up again, and I turned around, there was still nobody there. So I don't know what the deal was there. And then moving on to the graphics, they were about as good as I had expected. Obviously, they're not perfect, but they were very good and enough. They were good enough that I could get immersed. I had my settings on Epic, and there was still zero lag. I have a 980 um, graphics card, so I thought the graphics were pretty good. And usually, when I play games like Dirt Rally or Onward, Those seem to heat up my room a lot. This one didn't really heat up the room. I got hot since I was moving around, but um, it didn't wasn't too taxing on my computer, I don't think. Um, and then the only bad thing about graphics though were the explosions. It was kind of like you were in a 2017 brand new game graphics wise, and then something exploded, and you were like, wait, is it the year 2000? That was the most disgusting explosion I've ever seen. Um, they're terrible. But if they fix the explosion animation, I think the graphics would be great. Um, and then as far as the general feel goes, the shooting accuracy right away, my first time pulling the pistol out of the holster, I was able to hit exactly where I was aiming. So it's a very accurate shooting fit mechanics, and the bow and arrow is how a real bow and arrow feels. I mean, it's a little bit easier to shoot than a real bow and arrow, but it's also futuristic. Although the collision box on some objects is a little big, there were some times where I was shooting robots and they were really close to like a wall or something, and the bullet would think it hit the wall, but it really didn't. Um, but other than that, the shooting was pretty accurate. As far as bugs go, the body orientation was kind of whack. In games like Onward, if you look down, your chest is always square with your body the way it should be, unless you're crouching. Sometimes it gets a little iffy, and if you're laying down, sometimes it gets a little weird. But in this game, if you look down, your holster is sometimes like right in front of you, and your magazine is behind you, and they should be each at your hips. Um, and I don't know if that played a part into this, but I lost my magazine a couple times completely. Like even if I looked behind me, it still wasn't there. Um, and I figured that's because I ran out of ammo, but because when I died and came back alive, the magazine was back. But the guy that I was playing with said you can't run out of ammo, so I don't know which one the problem was. Another bug is when I got into the multiplayer session, we hit launch, there was 20 seconds of black screen, and normally, at first I thought the game froze, but I know that when a game freezes in VR, it puts you in Steam VR's overlay, so it kind of like pulls you out of the game for a second. If you played VR, you know what I'm talking about, but I know that the game didn't freeze, but it was just 20 seconds of straight black screen. Um, and you may be thinking 20 seconds, that's no big deal. But when you're getting ready to play a game and then all of a sudden you have to wait 20 seconds with no indication that the game even works, it's kind of frustrating. I'm going to put a black screen up for 20 seconds, and if you can make it through that 20 seconds just sitting there without skipping through, then you have a lot more patience than I do. And if you do skip through the 20 seconds, you owe me a like. So upon the end of that 20 seconds, I died randomly. As soon as I got spawned into the world, I died. And I don't know what caused it. And then I fell through the world. But once I respawned, I was right on top of my partner. Like I moved a little bit, and then all of a sudden there was a big body in front of me. And every time that we spawned somewhere, like when we entered that game and when we exited the game and went to the lobby, we always spawned right on top of each other. I would think that a game that came out early is a full blown game now would have fixed a problem like that, but maybe it'll come in a soon update. Um, and then the only other bug that I saw was that one time I was crouching behind cover, getting shot at. Every once in a while I was popping up to kill a robot, and then all of a sudden my cover disappeared completely. And I assume it's a bug because if it wasn't, I would think that there would have been a destruction animation. Um, but I guess maybe if a piece of cover takes enough damage, it'll disappear, but I'm going to call it a bug anyways because if it's supposed to have a destruction animation, it didn't. And if it wasn't supposed to disappear, it did, and I died. So fix it. And then as far as movement goes, teleporting was as you'd expect in any VR game. You press the touchpad and you aim where you're going and you teleport, and it works exactly as you'd expect, and it was perfect. But they also had the option of walking, which I usually like to do in a VR game, but this one was just awful. Um, I turned it back to teleporting. I turned walking off because a it doesn't pull you out of a situation fast enough. If there's a zombie or a robot approaching you and you try to walk away, you're not going to get away fast enough. And B, if you turn walking on, it still doesn't turn teleporting off. Maybe that's to combat the fact that you don't walk away very fast, but they still kind of encourage you to use the teleporting. So I ended up just using the teleporting anyways when I had walking on, and it ended up that when you teleport, if you had your finger in the right spot when you teleported, it would make you start walking for some reason. So if I tried to teleport onto a ledge, I would just walk right off. Or if you teleport near the edge of the world, you just walk right off. Um, so I turned walking off, but teleporting is plenty fine for me. If you need to get out of a situation, you can do it pretty quick. Um, and then as far as the balance of enemies go, or as far as enemies go, they are absolutely mindless. At one point in the campaign, I was standing in one spot and had about 5 robots approaching me, and I teleported away, and for the next 3 seconds they kept heading towards my old location, um, which I guess maybe that makes the game a little easier, but I would think that if I think the year's like 2217, I would think that by then they'd be able to make robots that can adjust to your new location when you move. Um, but now, as far as enemy balance goes, most of the enemies are pretty balanced. There aren't a whole lot of like this guy's impossible to kill or this guy's super easy to kill. But the only guy that I think is there's 2 guys that I think are a little overpowered. The Chargers are just the big red guys, the that like sprint at you and try to knock you over. I think they're a little too hard to kill, but it's not like it's terrible. It just took a lot of bullets to kill him. And then the Invisa Ninjas, they're fucking annoying. I hate them. But they only come up about once every match, so I can live with them for as rare as they come up. But if if in the later campaign they come out as often as the normal robots come out, I would be unhappy because they are very difficult to kill, and the fact that they're invisible and have a shield out of their spinning blade makes them very annoying to kill, and I hate them. But other than that, those are my thoughts on uh, raw data. My overall analysis on it would be to buy it. Currently, it's $30 on the Steam store. It's on sale until October 17th, I believe. So if you are watching this video before then, definitely pick it up. It's one that I can see myself playing for quite a while. Um, Even when it bumps back up to the $40, I still think it's worth it. It wouldn't be a first game that you need to buy once you buy your VR headset, but it's definitely a must-have to expand your library to at some point. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can see myself playing multiplayer quite a bit. So those are my thoughts on raw data. If you liked the video, please give me a like and a subscribe. And if you didn't like it, please dislike it and let me know in the comments what you didn't like about it. Thanks, and I hope to see you in the next one.